I think if there is anything that has really hit the news in about the last 3-4 years, it has been the microbiome. You know, we've known about the microbiome in forests. And if it's thrown out of balance, everything goes out. But when I did my nurse's training, there was one sentence that told me there was flora in my gut. And that was the end of it. And so what's happened now is it's so exciting. It's so exciting that major universities have actually shut down entire floors, research floors, and moved microbiome research into it. So it's the big topic right now. And what I've got to do is to try and turn you into a PhD in 25 minutes. So folks, put your seatbelts on, because this is big. When once you understand this, you understand why New Start is there. You understand why you're making decisions. And so what I have here is my 2 favorite topics are the microbiome, and your next one is the mitochondria. Because if you understand these 2, the lights go on. You choose differently, you think differently because of it. And so we've had different names along the line, and people use different names for the microbiome. Sometimes they're called flora, sometimes they're called germs, sometimes bacteria, sometimes bugs. If you bind the microbiome and you want to have a supplement to take, it's called a probiotic, but its real name is microbiome, and this is what I want to use now. And if I understand it, I'm going to look after it. Life is never going to be the same, because it is the one that actually helps profoundly to keep me healthy. When something starts going wrong, fix the microbiome, and you'll find your body responds to it so quickly. And what they're doing now is they're actually seeing the microbiome as another organ. This is weird. This is absolutely weird. If you look at that picture up there, everything has its place. The liver has its place, the stomach has its place, the intestines have its place, but the microbiome doesn't have one special place. It can move, it can change where it is, it can disappear completely. And when any of these happen, it's going to be absolutely profound what happens to your health. So the microbiome is everywhere. I'm glad we can't see each other in microscopic format, because we'd be different, because my eyes are covered with them. They're up my nose. They now know it's not just in the digestive system. It's actually inside every organ in your body as well. So it doesn't matter where you're going, it's there. And folks, this is really, I think, one of the most exciting areas that you can possibly explore. And if you understand and fix it, it's going to have about the most important changes that are going to happen in your life. And what's amazing is they found, remember I said to you, they're in the organs. So they've looked, if a woman has breast cancer, the microbiome in the good breast is different to the microbiome in the bad one. If it's in the colon, the microbiome that's in a colon with cancer in it is different to the microbiome in a healthy colon. So it really matters. And your particular mix is very unique to you. Yes, there are bugs that we share, but how much of everything we have all depends on what you are doing with your microbiome. So the microbiome that you have today would be different to the microbiome that you have tomorrow if you've eaten different foods. It's like your fingerprint. Yours is unique to you. And what happens is every single forkful or spoonful that you eat is going to affect your microbiome, and you're going to see these 2 words, good or bad, coming up all the time. We're going to keep using it for an absolute reason. There are just a few little words I need to tell you. You don't really need to remember the words, but each one has a task. So when you hear the word pre means beforehand, and biotic is the microbiome, and whatever you feed, your microbiome is going to grow good ones or bad ones. Okay? The probiotic is, I said, was just what you buy in a shop. You want to go and buy some, and there are just hundreds of them inside of you. And the more variety you eat, and we're going to talk about that, the more types of microbiome you're going to have, for good or for bad. And whatever you are feeding it, so we had to have the food, we have the microbiome, and if you're feeding it good, it's going to be good for your body. If you're feeding it bad, it's going to be bad for your body. So let's just summarize that again. If you eat the right food, that's the prebiotic. It means you're going to make the right microbiome, the probiotic, and it's going to have wonderful life-giving, health-giving effects on your body, and it provides nutrients as well if you're making the right one. Half your poop should be microbiome. So, what we've been talking about is there are, depending on what you eat, they're going to be goodies or they're going to be baddies in your microbiome. There should, if you're healthy, you should always have a really good balance of healthy ones. So 70 to 80% is the absolute ideal. When it's like that, those goodies, you can have 20% baddies, it's fine. They may even find the baddies if they do a stool specimen. But those baddies have had all their power to do damage taken away by the goodies. You got it? Important that. So, how can I make sure it's your food choices mainly? That's the bigger. There are other things that influence it, but your main one that you have 100% control over is your food choices. So you feed it what it likes, and you're going to have goodie microbiome. Okay. There's only one thing about the goodies, in fact the baddies as well, that I really don't like. Have any of you ever had a child who's a picky eater, won't eat this and won't eat that and won't eat the other, and life becomes a little bit difficult sometimes? This microbiome is exactly like that. This one only likes to eat this, that one will only eat that, that one will only eat that. And believe it or not, if you're not feeding them what they like, then they die out. So, what does the microbiome eat? Here comes, I think, the crunch of the whole thing. It's fiber. That's roughage, it used to be called. Okay? And so we're back to, let's go through the list. Grains, vegetables, fruit, legumes, seeds, nuts, and herbs and spices. Does that sound a bit like Genesis? It does, doesn't it? This hasn't come out of the Bible. It has come out of scientific literature. And it sort of hits you in your face and you just say, wow, God. Now comes the next story is, there is absolutely no fiber at all in any animal product, whether it's meat or milk or eggs. Doesn't matter how tough the meat is, doesn't matter what it is, there's absolutely no fiber there at all. So far, there's a microbiome, they're goodies and they're baddies. The goodies eat fiber. The baddies eat food without fiber. And it makes a profound difference. And folks, when we actually get into all of this refined stuff here, there's no roughage in it at all. This is we can honestly say it's dead food. It doesn't bring life to what we are doing, and the payback is there. So they have found every single mouthful that you put inside of you makes a difference to your actual microbiome. And if you're eating fiberless food, it makes inflammation. And inflammation is associated with absolutely every chronic disease. So I need to say this again. Every single bite of food that you eat is either going to make you healthier or it's going to make you sick. There's no in between, there's no getting away from it, and it's all your choice. Now, what I have here is a chromosome. We're not going to be talking about genetics. And for a long time, scientists have actually tried to work out how can we, with only, it seems like just over 23,000 genes, how can we be so sophisticated when there are plants with over 100,000? So we have just over 23,000. This doesn't make sense at all. Here is one flower, and it has its genes, its genome, that's just its basket full of genes, is 50 times bigger than yours. Doesn't make sense, does it? So, what we've had is you have got just over 23,000. Now we're going to talk about food. I'm very amused about the chewing the food. It's one of the things that I sometimes slip up on when I'm concentrating on something else. I don't think about what I'm doing with the food in my mouth. And I don't chew as well as what I should. I've actually got to stop and slow myself down. If I'm slowed down, I'm fine. But if I've got multiple things that I'm doing, and many of us multitask, you've got a whole lot of things going on in your brain at the same time. So I'm talking to myself here. All the nutrition in the body comes in in plants, comes in envelopes. So to get the nutrition out, you've actually got to chew the envelope open. And they have now found that we know there's genetics inside of a plant, right? Just like there's genetics inside of us, there's that as well. And when you are chewing, this genetic material actually escapes out of the plant. It gets into your blood circulation. It goes into your cells. That's profound. And inside of the cells, if it's good food, then you're going to have good things happen to you. Good genes get switched on. If it's bad food, bad genes get turned on. And it's happening all the time. So processed food only turns on our broken genes. We've all got broken genes. And processed food turns off our good genes. So, what we're going to do now is we have found out that what is happening inside of our bodies is way beyond what we thought of 40 years ago. And just like a cell phone tower, helps to communicate. So what's happening inside of the cells with that plant genetic material is it's making your genes communicate to your body. So now we've got some extra genes, right? Processed or animal foods. Wrong microbiome causes inflammation. Inflammation is involved in every single chronic disease. A chronic disease is just something that you've had for 3 months. So we all can have it for a short period of time. Processed foods, they only produce chronic inflammation. So let's go back. You've got you with your 23,000 genes. You've got the food with each genes, and here comes the filler, the microbiome. And if you've got good microbiome, it's got genes that come out of it when it breaks apart, and it goes into your body and affects how your genes are going to behave. So if you've got healthy microbiome, you're going to have healthy genetic material going in and influencing your genetic material. Where do we get it from? By touching. Doesn't matter whether it's water, it's everywhere, it's absolutely everywhere, whether we're touching each other. But I want to tell you a quick little story. Do you see my little bee? When that little bee goes from flower to flower on a fruit or food-bearing plant, it takes microbiome. As it flits from flower to flower, it takes it along with it. So it picks up in one flower and takes to another, and eventually it goes home and it takes it to its honey. And when you get to the pips, what I've got down here is a whole pile of fruits with pips in it. An apple, which has got how many seeds in the core? 4. That apple has got about 1 million microbiome in it. If it's been heavily sprayed, it's a different microbiome. If it's organic, it's a different microbiome. And I just want to tell you there's so many studies, but Rutgers University was the one that really made a difference to me. They took a whole pile of people on the standard American diet. And what they did is they tested their poop. They wanted to see what microbiome do they have. So what they did then is they then put them onto a plant-based diet. And 3 days later, they tested their poop again. And they found they had a totally different microbiome in it. Now they're finding out that the microbiome starts to change in hours after eating your food. These picky eaters, if they find it, what they like there, they get in and they eat away. Sauerkraut. You've got a cabbage. It may have been sprayed on the outside, but you keep going inside and you chop it up and you just put it into a bottle. There's a way of doing it so it really comes out nicely. Tiny little bit of salt with it. Leave it to stand. Press it down. Leave it to stand. And you will have a mass of microbiome growing in it. We're getting into the small intestine. What's inside there looks like a carpet. Do you see all the little finger-like things? Okay. They're tiny. They're about 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter long. If it's a damaged bowel, they can actually get taken out completely. So all you're left is little stumps there. That is where absorption of food takes place. Those little things is where it goes in. And what's amazing here is that's one of those little finger-like things, but look how many there are on the outside. So there are little fingers on the fingers. And that makes your small intestine go to the surface area of a tennis court. Do you know how big a tennis court is? It's not an imagination how small the person on the other side is in the picture. So let's go and put our microbiome into the small intestine. So you've got them coming along and they want to park. This is now inside. They're looking for a place to park. And what they do is when they get to the small intestine, on those little villi, they actually make a mucus apartment. So they make a mucus themselves and they put in and they build themselves. But already there is another layer of mucus on the inside of the bowel, protecting it. So you've got two things. You've got the protective layer, and you've got the layer made by the microbiome. So you've got goodies at any stage wanting to park, and you've got baddies, depending on what you've eaten. Even the COVID-19 germs found themselves a place to park there. They found the people who died consistently had a terrible microbiome. This thing is big. It's very big. And so, their favorite place is in between those little fingers, where they actually go and they build themselves, and what they're trying to do is to keep the baddies out from actually fixing on there. And they say to the baddies, sorry mate, this is our place, and we live here, you listen to us, and the baddies just can't be bad. So there's the inner lining of the small intestine is lined, in fact, the whole digestive system, with just a single layer of cells. There's one layer of mucus, there's another layer of mucus, and it's got a whole lot of jobs. I'm not even going to go with it. That list of what that mucus does is there. If you are having regular meals, you look inside the intestine, do you see there are lots of empty spaces? Okay? That's if you're not eating all the time. And when it's like that, the microbiome stays balanced and healthy. But when you start packing, and I couldn't find a picture, so I want you to imagine the small intestine here loaded with food. And what actually happens is it becomes overworked, and the microbiome on that inner layer, because they now know that there's lots of microbiome on the inner layer. Remember, they built it themselves. But there's also very critical microbiome on that that inside layer that fixes on the inside of the bowel wall. They've got a very important job to actually protecting the bowel wall itself. The microbiome on the very inside does its thing of actually making you healthy, but the inner layer protects the bowel wall. If you're snacking all the time, the inner layer that has been built by the microbiome, they gorge and they eat away and they eat all the food if you're eating all the time. They actually apparently become obese. And the inner layer have got no food. So they start eating the mucus layer, the inside one that's supposed to protect the bowel wall, okay? And it becomes damaged. Just have a look. If you've got a healthy mucus layer, that's how the mucus is strung together. Amazing? If you've got a damaged one, it's broken. It's no longer protecting you from having something called leaky gut. And they've got a nice name for it in medicine. Medicine has recognized it, and it's called intestinal hyperpermeability. We'll just stick to leaky gut. Let's talk about the fiber. You've got different types of fiber. We looked at we know it only comes in plants, and there's soluble fiber that gets digested amongst all the fingers. It can get used there, but you get insoluble fiber. And this insoluble fiber goes into, it's not used, remember, by in the small intestine. It has to travel into the colon, and it's incredibly important. But you can make more variety for the colon by doing something called resistant starch. If any of you have brought food along and you've allowed the starch to get cold, whether it's potato salad or what it is, a hot potato, the starch will get digested in the small intestine. A cold potato will only get digested in the colon. So you're actually giving the colon more to eat. And what happens when this resistant starch, when this insoluble fiber gets into the colon, the microbiome starts fermenting it. It's got to get broken down into a form that it can get used. And as it's fermented, the microbiome starts eating it. And the more variety of fiber you have, insoluble fiber, going through to the colon, which is this bitty up there. So the small intestine is there, and the colon goes up there, and down to the back. So the more variety you have, and it doesn't have to be a lot, even a teaspoonful makes a difference. If you are feeding a type of microbiome, they will multiply. If you're not feeding them, they die very quickly. They starve and they die. So we actually have to feed them. And here we are, just identifying inflammation. And there are 4 main symptoms that come with it. Red, heat, swelling, pain. Something feels hot, something looks red, you may not be able to see it, you may only be able to feel it. If there's discomfort, there is inflammation. And we said, if we've had discomfort for 3 months, then it's a chronic problem, and the inflammation that has been made then is okay, I'm just being told time-wise because I can take up the whole day, okay? Yeah. If things go wrong, see, what the goodies are supposed to make is things called short-chain fatty acids. Forget the name. They are making things that are going to help you to break down food. They're going to give strengthen the inner lining of the colon, and it helps prevent a whole lot of things, because not only now do we know we have leaky gut. If you've got leaky gut, you can have leaky brain, you can have leaky heart, you can have leaky kidneys, because it's the same lining that's on the inside of the digestive system that you find on the inside of those organs. And so if that inner lining gets broken, that's the start of autoimmune disease. You'll never fix an autoimmune disease if you don't fix the inner lining of the gut. And just quickly what it does, it makes a whole group of vitamins. It helps us absorb minerals like iron and calcium. It makes anti-cancer substances. That's important to us. And it helps our immune system to actually work properly, because 80% of our immune system actually sits in the gut. And that cytokine storm that they were talking about in COVID is the microbiome's gone wrong. And the immune system just goes crazy in COVID, and those are most the people who died. And so they actually influence how your immune system works and how you behave, whether you are happy, whether you're depressed, whether you are anxious, whether all of those things that come along with it. We've got a messed up microbiome, and so much that we can actually blame on microbiome: heart disease, inflammatory bowel disease, liver diseases, chronic, and the list goes on and on around here. And that is, and so folks, what we have here is your body is like an orchestra, where all the instruments actually have to play together. And if they're doing that, you are going to be well. We need to look after this microbiome if you want to be healthy.